Your soulmate is already married. The real story will shock you. My beloved child. They told you your soulmate is already married, and the moment those words reached your ears, something inside you quietly broke. But what if that heartbreaking sentence is only the surface of a story no one has dared to tell you? What if the truth hidden behind that marriage is far more complicated, and far more connected to you than anyone realizes? Don't skip. Every detail you are about to hear fits together like pieces of a forgotten puzzle. At first, it will seem impossible to believe, yet each new clue will make the picture clearer. The strange part is that your soulmate never stopped looking back, even after everyone believed the door between you had closed forever. The question is, why would someone who supposedly moved on continue searching for traces of a person they were meant to leave behind? The answer begins long before the wedding itself. There was pressure that arrived quietly, disguised as responsibility, family expectations, promises made years earlier, and fears too heavy for one heart to carry alone. Everyone watching believed they understood what was happening, but they only witnessed the ceremony, not the silent battles that came before it. Your soulmate smiled in photographs that told one story while their eyes revealed another. There were moments when they almost turned away, moments when one unexpected message, one unexpected meeting, could have changed everything. Yet something interrupted those moments every single time. Coincidence, or something carefully arranged? Stay till the end, because the person who influenced those choices has remained hidden in the shadows until now, and their reasons may surprise you. Now another mystery begins to unfold. Since that marriage, life has not followed the path everyone predicted. Small, almost invisible events have continued pulling your soulmate back toward thoughts they believed they had buried forever. A familiar place suddenly appears in their routine. A forgotten song refuses to leave their mind. Even dreams begin repeating with unusual clarity, as though someone is gently reminding them of a promise left unfinished. They cannot explain why your name keeps returning to their thoughts at unexpected moments, even when they try to focus elsewhere. That is why this story is not about whether a marriage exists, it is about whether every marriage tells the whole truth. And hidden inside one forgotten memory lies the single detail that could change everything you thought you knew about this connection. There is one detail almost nobody knows. The marriage that everyone points to as the final chapter was never the beginning of the real story. It was simply the moment the world stopped asking questions. Behind closed doors, your soulmate carried a silence that grew heavier with every passing season. They fulfilled expectations, smiled when they were expected to smile, and spoke the words people wanted to hear. Yet every time they found themselves alone, an uncomfortable feeling returned. The feeling that a part of their life had been left somewhere they could no longer reach. They tried convincing themselves it was only nostalgia, only curiosity. But the more they ignored it, the stronger it became. Then something happened that shattered the illusion they had carefully built around themselves. One ordinary day, they stumbled across something they never expected to see. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't planned. It was a small reminder connected to you. A familiar phrase, an old photograph, a place filled with memories they believed had faded forever. In an instant, emotions they had buried beneath years of responsibility rushed back with surprising force. Suddenly, questions they had avoided demanded answers. Why did they still feel this connection after everything that had happened? Why did every attempt to forget you leave them feeling even more unsettled? Don't look away now, because this is where the story takes a turn no one around them could have predicted. Someone very close to them quietly noticed the change and began asking questions your soulmate wasn't prepared to answer. That conversation became impossible to escape. For the first time in a long while, your soulmate admitted that something inside them had never truly been at peace. They didn't reveal every detail, but their hesitation said more than words ever could. The person listening realized there was a hidden chapter no one had ever heard, a chapter connected to you. And instead of dismissing it, they encouraged your soulmate to uncover the truth they had spent so long avoiding. From that moment forward, small coincidences became impossible to ignore, each one leading them closer to a discovery they never imagined. Something huge is waiting for you, because the next clue isn't about the marriage at all. It's about the secret that existed long before those wedding vows were ever spoken. The next clue arrived in the quietest way imaginable. There were no dramatic confrontations, no shocking announcements, only an old memory that refused to stay buried. Your soulmate found themselves revisiting conversations they hadn't thought about in years, replaying words they once dismissed as insignificant. Suddenly, those forgotten moments carried an entirely different meaning. They realized there had been signs all along that something had interfered with the path they originally wanted to take. At the time, they believed every setback was simply bad timing. Now they began to wonder whether someone had been quietly steering their decisions without them ever noticing. That single question opened a door they could no longer close. As they searched for answers, another unexpected truth surfaced. Someone from their past finally admitted that the story surrounding your connection had never been complete. Important conversations had been hidden. Messages had never reached the right person. Assumptions had replaced honest communication until both of you were living separate lives based on incomplete information. Imagine discovering that one missing piece could have changed years of decisions. Your soulmate sat in complete silence after hearing this, unable to shake the feeling that they had built their future on a foundation they never fully understood. Stay till the end, because the next revelation explains why they have recently become so restless, even though everything around them appears perfectly normal. That restlessness has now become impossible to ignore. Every attempt to move forward only leads them back to the same unanswered questions, the same unfinished emotions, and the same invisible thread that still seems connected to you. They have started noticing strange patterns, unexpected encounters, familiar names appearing at the right moment, and recurring dreams that always end before revealing the final answer. None of it feels accidental anymore. For the first time, they are beginning to believe that the life everyone sees is only one version of the truth. Hidden beneath it is another story that has remained untouched for years, and someone is finally preparing to reveal the one conversation that was never supposed to happen, but could change everything from this point forward. That conversation began with a single unexpected question. If you could go back and change one decision, would you? Your soulmate didn't answer immediately. Instead, they stared into the distance, as though they were watching memories unfold one by one. The silence itself became the answer. They finally admitted there was one chapter of their life they had never been able to close, no matter how much time had passed. It wasn't because they wanted to erase the people around them. It was because deep inside, they had never discovered what truly happened between the two of you. The more they searched their own heart, the more they realized they had accepted other people's versions of the story without ever uncovering the whole truth. And that realization brought them to a decision they had been avoiding for years. They quietly began retracing the past. Old conversations were revisited. Familiar places suddenly carried new meaning. Even the smallest details started connecting in ways they had never noticed before. One memory led to another until they uncovered a pattern that was impossible to ignore. Every time your paths had come close to crossing again, something unexpected had pulled you apart at the very last moment. It happened too many times to dismiss as coincidence. Each missed opportunity left behind another unanswered question. Who, or what, kept interrupting those moments? Something huge is waiting for you, because the answer doesn't point toward fate alone. It points toward a choice someone else made long ago, a choice whose consequences are only now beginning to surface. Then came the discovery that changed everything. Hidden among forgotten memories was one conversation your soulmate had never heard in its entirety. Pieces of it had been withheld, misunderstood, or intentionally left incomplete. When the missing details finally came to light, they realized they had spent years believing something that wasn't entirely true. The foundation of every decision that followed suddenly felt uncertain. Their marriage, their regrets, their unanswered questions, all of them now stood beneath a completely different light. And as they prepared to uncover the identity of the person who had kept this truth hidden for so long, they had no idea that the next revelation would force them to question not only their past, but every decision they planned to make from this moment onward. The search for that hidden truth led your soulmate to someone who had remained silent for far too long. This person had watched everything unfold from the sidelines, carrying pieces of the story that no one else possessed. At first, they refused to speak. They believed the past was better left untouched. But after seeing the questions that continued to haunt your soulmate, they finally confessed that the version everyone accepted had never been the complete picture. There were conversations that ended too soon, intentions that were misunderstood, and choices made while important facts were still missing. Your soulmate felt the ground beneath them shift. If this was true, then the life they had been living was built upon assumptions rather than certainty. As more details emerged, another realization became impossible to ignore. Neither of you had truly walked away with the whole truth. Both of you had been left carrying different fragments of the same unfinished story, each believing the other had made a final decision. That misunderstanding quietly shaped years of distance. Your soulmate remembered moments when they almost reached out but stopped because they believed you had already found happiness elsewhere. Meanwhile, every unanswered silence only strengthened that belief. Don't skip, because the next discovery explains why those misunderstandings kept repeating instead of being corrected. It wasn't simply bad timing. There was one final piece that had remained hidden from everyone involved. Then, without warning, an unexpected message surfaced, one that had never reached its intended destination. It wasn't dramatic, but its meaning was undeniable. Reading it now was like opening a door that should have been unlocked years ago. Every sentence challenged the story your soulmate had believed for so long. Suddenly, regret wasn't just an emotion, it became a question that demanded an answer. What would have happened if that message had arrived when it was supposed to? Would everything have unfolded differently? Your soulmate now stands at the edge of a choice they never imagined they would face again, because the person holding the final answer is finally ready to reveal why that message disappeared in the first place. The person who held that answer never expected to be questioned again. For years, they convinced themselves that remaining silent had protected everyone involved. But when your soulmate placed that forgotten message on the table, there was nowhere left to hide. A long silence filled the room before they finally admitted that fear, not certainty, had guided many of the decisions made back then. They believed they were preventing heartbreak. Instead, they unknowingly created years of unanswered questions. Your soulmate listened without interrupting, but every sentence made one truth impossible to ignore: the story they had accepted as reality had been missing its most important chapter from the very beginning. What came next was even harder to hear. There had been moments when the truth could have been revealed, but each opportunity slipped away because everyone assumed someone else would speak first. One misunderstanding became two. Two became 10. Eventually, silence began to look like choice, even though it was never meant to be. Looking back, your soulmate realized how easily people can mistake distance for indifference when neither side knows the full story. Suddenly, memories that once seemed ordinary took on an entirely different meaning. Certain words now sounded like hidden pleas. Certain goodbyes no longer felt final. Stay with this, because one unexpected discovery is about to challenge everything your soulmate believed about the day they truly lost you. Then a date appeared, one they hadn't thought about in years. At first, it seemed insignificant, but as the memories returned, they noticed something astonishing. On that very same day, both of you had made separate decisions based on the exact same misunderstanding. Neither of you knew what the other was feeling. Neither of you knew how close the truth had been to changing everything. That realization left your soulmate speechless. If one conversation had happened differently, an entirely different future might have unfolded. Now they face a question that refuses to leave their mind: is it too late to uncover what was left unfinished, or has this hidden story been leading toward one final meeting all along? Your soulmate couldn't stop thinking about that possibility. Every unanswered question now pointed toward one conclusion: they had spent years running from a story they never truly understood. The marriage that everyone believed had settled everything no longer felt like the ending. It felt like a chapter written before the real truth had been uncovered. They began noticing how often your memory surfaced during the quietest moments, not as regret alone, but as an unfinished conversation waiting to happen. Even the smallest reminders seemed impossible to ignore. A familiar place. A familiar melody. A passing stranger whose words echoed something you once said. These moments weren't giving them answers. They were inviting them to ask better questions. And one question rose above all the others: what if the person they needed to understand most had been misunderstood from the very beginning? That question changed the way they looked at everything around them. Instead of asking whether the past could be rewritten, they began asking whether the truth had ever been fully spoken. The people closest to them noticed the change. They became quieter, more thoughtful, less certain about the story they had defended for so long. One evening, while sorting through forgotten keepsakes, they found something they had overlooked countless times. It wasn't valuable in appearance, but it carried a memory that instantly connected every clue they had uncovered. Their heart raced because they suddenly realized this wasn't just a reminder of the past, it was evidence that one crucial moment had never happened the way everyone believed. Something huge is waiting for you, because this discovery points toward a person who has remained silent until now, and they are finally ready to speak. As your soulmate prepared to hear what this person had to say, an unexpected warning stopped them in their tracks. They were told that once the full truth was revealed, there would be no returning to the comfortable version of the past they had lived with for years. Every assumption would be challenged. Every explanation would have to be reconsidered. They paused, knowing that some answers heal while others transform everything that comes after. Yet they also understood that continuing to live with uncertainty was no longer possible. Somewhere beyond that final conversation lies the one revelation capable of explaining why your connection never completely disappeared, and why the next words they are about to hear could change the direction of every chapter that follows. The long-awaited conversation finally began, but it wasn't filled with accusations or anger. It began with a single sentence that froze your soulmate where they stood: "You were never told what really happened." Those words echoed through every memory they had been carrying for years. The silence that followed felt heavier than any explanation. One by one, hidden details started emerging, not to blame anyone, but to reveal how fear, assumptions, and timing had quietly rewritten the course of two lives. Your soulmate realized that what they had accepted as destiny had often been nothing more than incomplete information. For the first time, they stopped asking, "Why did this happen?" and started asking, "Who benefited from us never knowing the truth?" As the answers unfolded, another unexpected realization surfaced. The marriage everyone focused on had never been the true mystery. It had simply become the distraction that kept everyone from looking deeper. The real story was about the choices made before those vows were ever spoken, the conversations interrupted before they could reach the right ears, and the feelings that neither of you were ever given the chance to fully express. Your soulmate understood that they had spent years honoring a version of the past that was missing its most important pages. Stay till the end, because the final piece wasn't hidden in an old message or a forgotten memory. It had been quietly living inside someone's conscience all along, waiting for the courage to finally come forward. Then came the confession that no one expected. A voice, trembling with regret, admitted, "If I had told the truth back then, your lives might have taken a completely different path." No excuses followed, only silence, honesty, and the weight of years that could never be returned. Your soulmate closed their eyes, not because every question had been answered, but because they finally understood that the greatest heartbreak had never been the marriage itself. It was the truth that arrived far too late. Yet even in that painful realization, one mystery remained untouched. Now that every hidden chapter has begun to surface, what choice will your soulmate make when the opportunity finally appears to face the one person whose story has always remained unfinished, yours?